Wait, do you watch tapes? You watch every tape your actors submit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you give feedback immediately? Like you're like, this is not up to your standards, or I think you could have done this differently based on how I interpreted the character.
Yeah, the way that I kind of work is that you either hear from me if it's really great or really bad.
Okay.
Well, not even like really bad, but just like if it needs work, if it needs tweaking, then you hear from me. If it's great and I'm sending it through, we probably won't hear much besides like, thanks, got it.
Yeah.
And then, but like sometimes, it's just like the tape is like great and I'll have to just say something like, hey, you like killed it on this one,
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, for you, what makes a bad tape? Other than the obvious sort of bad
the
backlighting or whatever.
Yeah, or like sometimes the reader.
Oh, really?
Sometimes the reader kills me. Like it's just, and you feel bad kind of saying something because sometimes it's like somebody's like partner or parent.
Yeah.
And you're just like, hey, I'm really sorry. Your mother's lovely, but please stop this. Like, I can't take it anymore. So yeah. But the thing is that it's not just me either. Like casting, it is distracting. Like if the reader is really bad and like, super monotone or just like really slow, sometimes it just slows everything down so much, and it really it does affect the performance for sure.
Yeah.
And casting is affected by it. So if it's like if I'm laughing, like I guarantee you, like they're laughing.
Right.
Right.
In a bad way.
Yeah. Exactly. Other than that, I think the tapes. I mean, just you can kind of tell if something's been rushed, and they just like maybe they were working all night. They didn't have enough time to like truly prepare, and you can feel it because it just like there's a disconnect, and you can see that like the actor doesn't quite even understand what the role is, or just is like slamming it out. But yeah, I don't see too many like really bad tapes, especially since I stopped doing casting. That's what we're just like, oh my god, and somebody sent this through.
And you curate your talent presumably because you assume they're good and know they're good and are delivered consistently.
Exactly. So like I kind of end up just like nitpicking, and obviously I've had like actors that I signed like out of high school or college and they're still really green, and it's just it's just kind of like about breaking some bad habits or like weird things that they were taught that I'm like, no, don't do it like that. Yeah.
Well, I ask, like, my managers watch every tape and my agents don't, so I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because it's like we as actors we read it, we do our research, we break it down, and then we sort of make choices, right? And we get in that headspace for these self-tapes where, it takes us half an hour, whatever. We're in that space. And then if we get a note that's like maybe subtle or something not too big and they want us to recreate it, I'm always worried that like I'm happy to do it most of the time, but at times I'm like, I don't want to just try to recreate what I did. I sort of got in there and now I would just be recreating something and it's just going to look like me trying to recreate what I did plus this one little thing.
Right.
So it's such a weird sort of...
I get that for sure. But like sometimes it is just, I can't really speak for other reps, but I know for myself, especially because I worked in casting, sometimes I really do know that like you just completely like missed it here.
No, and that makes sense, right? Like for me, that totally makes sense, and then I'm happy to retake.
Right.
If I interpreted something completely wrong, oh yeah, I can change the lens with which I approach this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it gets tricky in those sort of little nuanced things. I think
it does, and especially because when you're in casting, you know when certain lines are really important, like kind of which moments that they're really going to be looking at that are going to make a difference. And so if I notice that there was like a crucial moment there that just like the actor kind of glossed over and I'm like, no, like I know they want it done like this.
Yeah.
Especially based on, the different, like whatever show or film it is, there's always going to be a certain tone. And I think that if you're not nailing it, tonally, then yeah, I have to get you to switch that.
To that end, though, do you sort of point that out before an audition? If you're so
I'm kind
aware
of hoping that the actor is doing their homework there.
Okay.
Like if you're auditioning for Succession and you haven't watched an episode, you know, I feel that my actors are very prepared, and so I would hope that, you know, you at least watched a few episodes,
right,
and understand the tone and understand that shows have different tones. Like, you know, that just seems like a basic thing that, like,
I agree
that all of my clients definitely know.
But I was asking more specifically, you were saying like there might be a line that is important to the scene.
Oh,
are you
right.
reading the scene beforehand and then sending it off and
Yes.
being like, take a note of this line? This is.
I don't usually do that. I don't want to really like interfere get into their heads before. Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things where, you know, I'll look over the sides and see what they do, because sometimes, you know, an actor is going to do something probably a lot more interesting than I'm even thinking in my head, and that does happen a lot of the time too, where I'm like, ooh, I like that choice, you know, so I don't want to mess with that beforehand.
So it's more like you just know when it's wrong, almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is definitely what it is.
Because it's like I talk to all these casting people, and it's like sometimes like their expectation was subverted, and they know it's right, but yeah, so to tell them what to do is not going to help.
No.
But you know what? I got to stop pointing. Every time I edit this podcast, I realize I'm pointing at the guest, and I feel like that's got to just be... I apologize. I'm going to just do this. I'm so animated. I apologize. Yeah, so you just must know when it's wrong, and it just doesn't fit and feel good.
Yeah.